In a world of shills and unreliable movie reviews, it's hard to find the truth before investing your time into a film. So now, we're going to judge who's telling the truth or who's out of touch with reality. It's time to review the critics.
Twisters is the most recent disaster movie from Warner Brothers and Universal. And I'm glad to say that in 2024, Twisters is not a disaster. It's a monster movie that delivers on thrills and effects and gives us the bonus of spectacular performances from up-and-coming Daisy Edgar Jones and Top Gun Maverick's heartthrob Glenn Powell.
So bright tonight.
Though it's not going to be on many people's top 10 lists in a decade, it certainly does everything required to be a big, fun summer blockbuster spectacular. It's essentially a 90s disaster movie without the campiness. The film is a reminder that a thunderous, scary natural world exists just outside our windows, and it doesn't hurt to look up from our phones and notice it every now and then. Or does it? A quick look on Rotten Tomatoes reflects that critics and audiences are largely enamored by the film, with the critics giving it a respectable 77% and the audiences awarding it a 92%. But obviously, this movie needs to be at 100% for both scores because it's so much better than it needed to be. So now that the critics have reviewed Twisters, let's wrangle up the losers who gave it a rotten score. Let's review the critics. David Rooney from Hollywood Reporter says that the extent to which all this is conjured with a digital paint box lessens the pulse-quickening awe of nature at its most destructive. Oh, now look, I take a firm stance on the anti-digital, anti-CGI crap we keep getting forced. I want effects to go back to being practical as much as the next guy. But credit where credit is due, Twisters was shot on 35 millimeter film, which gives it that grainy 90s look, and the technology and special effects won't take audiences out of the movie, reminding everyone that we're trapped in this hellhole called 2024 influences or the 21st century.
We finally beat Medicare.
Shut up.
Let's face it, the effects were as practical as they could possibly be in a tornado movie, and might stand up as well as the original Twister nearly 30 years later. It's possible David from Hollywood Reporter went into this with arms crossed and no windstorm was going to budge him. Damon Wise from Deadline Hollywood Daily says, it's hard to imagine who Twisters is actually for. It rubs me the wrong way when people complain they don't know who a certain film is for. Films are for people who think it looks interesting, and that can be anyone from goths to hillbillies to science geeks. On that note, Twisters is most certainly meant for the whole family, despite its PG-13 rating. There's no group of people or demographic that won't find some sort of enjoyment from this film unless you're Damon Wise. The dialogue is creaky whenever it's not sat-nav speak, and the bad behavior of rapidly spinning air isn't really something to invest in. Seriously, the bad behavior of rapidly spinning air? I'm sure glad this guy didn't make the pitch for this film to be made. What would he say about an earthquake movie? The angry ground wobbles and gyrates. Ooh, scary. Nicholas Barber from BBC.com says that Hollywood's powers that be didn't do anything surprising with this 28-year-old intellectual property. Well, there's a reason for that, Nicholas. At this point, audiences aren't looking to be surprised, especially by the likes of Hollywood. Right now, people just want to enjoy a film because we've been thrown too many Hollywood surprises over the last 5 years that we've collectively rejected.
Hey, have you not heard that scuttlebutt? No, the gossip.
The powers that be are smartly trying to regain ground and just put out safe and fun movies for now. I think that's just the most surprising thing about Twisters is that it's good enough to stand tall with the disaster movies of yesteryear. Tim Grierson from Screen International says that the director, Lee Isaac Chung, makes the mistake of taking this escapist fare too seriously. I think the only one not having fun with Twisters is Tim. As for me and my crowd, we all had big escapist grins suctioned to our faces for 2 hours. Are there dramatic parts? Or coarse? But they don't dampen the mood of the movie. They actually provide us with some depth. Tim needs to stop taking fun blockbuster disaster films too seriously.
Why so serious?
Graham Tuckett from stuff.co.c is an even bigger downer, if you can believe that. He says it's either monumental chutzpah or an abject failure of nerve to make a film in 2024 about catastrophic weather events without once muttering the words climate change. Well, Buddha freaking who? No normal person ever goes into a movie with a checklist of words or phrases we hope are muttered in the film, unless you're Kathleen Kennedy.
Put a chick in it, make her gay.
Graham Tuckett and small-minded people like him have thrown all care and fun and joy out the window and are just looking for shit to complain about.
When we talk about things here, we must only discuss work-associated things. And in the future, if I want to say something funny or witty or do an impression, I will no longer ever do any of those things.
Well, guess what, Graham Tuckett? The rest of us are celebrating that the words climate change was never brought up in the movie. Wait, no, we're not. You never even thought about it? Why is that, you ask? Because the rest of us normal people go to these kinds of movies to escape today's ideas and worries and politics.
And that's it.
We celebrate directors like Lee Isaac Chung, who specifically stated to CNN, I just wanted to make sure that with the movie, we don't ever feel like it is putting forward any message. I just don't feel like films are meant to be message oriented. Mr. Chung, you deserve the golden chair at the Hollywood banquet for stating this. Let's say, for argument, Graham Tuckett, that someone in the movie did mention climate change.
Sometimes I wish I could just fight climate change.
You can.
No, I mean like actually fight it. Like,
well, what then? Is that what would urge you to give the film a passing score? Do you actually believe that the mere utterance of two words?
If we don't take decisive action against climate change right now, we're in serious trouble. Are you trying to make yourself cry?
I am crying.
No, you're not.
I'm really close. Keep the cameras rolling.
The mere utterance of two words on a film meant for summer entertainment is going to alter the course of science and suddenly cause every person to start driving overpriced electric cars.
It's like a glorified golf cart.
Recycle every Pringles can and Frosted Flakes box. Like, would it cause my neighbor to quit smoking, take the public transit, plant trees every weekend, donate heavily to the DNC, and hump some rose bushes on a nature hike, all because this hotshot actor named Glenn Powell
So hot right now.
said the words climate change in an action movie?
Climate change.
I bet Graham Tuckett no longer supports child abuse because The Simpsons recently decided Homer was a bad example for strangling Bart all those years. So Graham Tuckett needs to stop choking kids, stop critiquing movies, and go fuck hot solar panels. I'm just calling out Emiliano Basil from Escribiendo Scene to change her rating to a fresh score because she clearly enjoyed the movie. Emiliano, hola. I'm not sure how they do it in Spanish, but your positive review does not merit a rotten score. Can you please change it so that Twisters has a higher rating? Rotten Tomatoes isn't an American election. Your vote actually counts here. Eric Langberg from Everything's Interesting gave Twisters a fresh score, but I just wanted to share his affinity for the dashing Glenn Powell, who easily stole this film.
So bright tonight.
Eric says Glenn Powell is a tornado of charisma, flashing his megawatt grin so often that he threatens to blow the Twisters themselves out of the frame. I'm not saying I have a man crush on Glenn Powell or anything, but if tornadoes happen to suck up the entire earth and he and I were the only two people left, let's just say I would not complain. We also wouldn't be able to reproduce, but still, I would not complain. Fred Topol from United Press International is trapped in middle school, but not in the whimsical, charming way.
Really?
He complains that there are no flying cows to distinguish the storms and twisters. It's like the flying cow from the original movie is the only thing he remembers because he found it so funny. Which, don't get me wrong, it's funny.
Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
But only a man-child would base his whole score on whether the sequel repeated that funny little joke or not. Oh, look, there's two flying cows. Twisters is twice the laughs. Nick Shager from the Daily Beast says, by minimizing its predecessor's goofiness in favor of vacuous character drama, winds up only sporadically kicking into gale force gear. This would be a great review if it was true. I think everyone would agree that Twisters matches the tone of Helen Hunt's source material quite perfectly. It's not any more silly or dramatic than the original. I can't decide if Courtney Howard from Fresh Fiction is afraid of facts and science or if she got the two Twister movies mixed up. She says, bogged down by science speak, boring internal and external conflicts, and on-the-nose soundtrack selections, it frequently gets wrong what the original got right. Bill Paxton's Twister had just as much science speak, about a whole minute's worth.
Right, and lots of tape.
Cab's already starting to break.
What else are you seeing?
All models are forecasting lifted indices
Flow is
from
clean,
-6 to -10.
blowing tons of warm moist air from the south.
And when that warm air and moisture busts through the cap, it explodes in the atmosphere, creating an anvil.
You're right.
The vertical wind shear begins to rotate the updraft, forming a mesocyclone.
Here's the mystery.
We don't know how a tornado forms. We see the hook on the radar, but
What are all the invisible factors coming together? Every little detail.
it has to be perfect. And it's a mix of what we know and everything we can't understand. It's part science, part religion.
The conflicts for both films are what propels the action forward. Like, it actually gets our characters up to the tornadoes.
You've never seen him miss this house and miss that house and come after you.
And also, can I just say that the soundtrack for Twister is still one of the best soundtracks of all time?
Featuring the smash hit Humans Being by Van Halen. With performances by music from the motion picture soundtrack Twister on Warner Brothers CDs and cassettes.
And Twister's soundtrack is almost as good. Go check them out. Mark Hanson from Slant magazine says that Twisters proceeds as a jumble of poorly sketched backstories and subplots, half-hearted topical references, and tepid fan service. I'm not sure what Mark is talking about with all this half-ass crap, but when did fan service become such a negative connotation?
Come on, I'll show you 3PO. He's wonderful.
Yes, fan service can come across as desperate and pitiful, but it can also be used in just the right way to give the sequel or reboot a boost. And Twisters does just that. Like that, they never CGI Bill Paxton into the movie, warning people about storms, Lion King style.
Everybody underground now! What are you doing? Joe, things go wrong. You can't explain it. You can't predict it.
Steven Silver from the SS Ben Hecht says that Twisters nails the human element, and Powell is a true movie star, but the storms are less than impressive. This is a negative review I can get behind. I actually thought that was the charm of the movie. Steven Silver from the SS Ben Hecht says that Twisters nails the human element. And hey, wait a minute. Why is this review on there twice? This better not have affected the tomato score. Hey, Rotten Tomatoes guys, are you going to fix this? Kenneth R. Moorfield from One More Film Blog clearly doesn't understand the point of a disaster film. He says the film had a queasy sheen around it with realistic depictions of the aftermath of storms and the havoc they cause at odds with the ain't this fun tone of the whole. I don't think he gets that if the disaster and the aftermath aren't convincing, then no real fun can be had while the disaster is happening. I mean, look at Sharknado. We know that can't really happen, so it takes all the fun out of it. Okay, I lied. Sharknado is a pretty kick-ass ride that's so stupid it's fun. How about Jaws 3D? Remember this scene? All fear of the shark that might have still been there was completely lost after this scene. Thus, no more fun. Laura Clifford from Reeling Reviews pouts about the fact that 28 years ago, we had flying cows. Now we just have a chicken. Again, is the flying cow all people remember about Twister? Let's not forget that the sequel also gave us fire-nados and rockets, and let's face it, Glenn Powell. So Robert Coider from Flickering Myth has just 4 words to say about Twisters. It sure does suck. Well, why, Robert? I read Robert's full review, and he goes on and on complaining about how not subtle the film is. I think Robert might be the only person who watches a summer blockbuster hoping that he'll be inundated with not explosions and action, but subtlety. While it's commendable that Howard Waldstein from CBR gave Twisters a fresh score of 8 out of 10, saying Twisters has a claim for being the best monster movie of recent years. I think he's forgot about last year's Godzilla -1. Chuck Bowen from Style Weekly, Richmond, Virginia, gave Twisters a negative score. He says, "How are the storms? Fine, but DeBonts were scarier and more painterly." Okay, I'm not going to say Chuck is wrong. He's absolutely right that the original Twister is much scarier by all accounts, but we've got to expect that Hollywood rarely goes for scares anymore. Look at the Jurassic World movies compared to the park movies. But that's part of what makes Twisters such a fun family experience. And now it's time for the most honest review of Twisters. All the positive reviews, and there are a lot of them, seem to hit directly into the suck zone. But Scott Menzel from We Live Entertainment summed Twisters up perfectly. He says Twisters has a little bit of everything. It has action, romance, thrills, fun, cheese, and even some heart. It is the perfect blockbuster because it delivers everything one wants from a big screen spectacle.
Come back later this week when we review what the critics have to say about Deadpool 2 as we prepare for the wildly anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine. RTC will surely show no mercy to anyone who speaks badly about our favorite merc with a mouth. We're a brand new channel, so please help us grow. You can do that by checking out some of our other videos, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share RTC so we can keep on bashing the critics. Also, what's your favorite 90s disaster movie that should get a reboot? Let us know in the comments below.